So we'll begin our wing construction here. The way we'll do that is we'll go ahead and we'll pop one of these wing leading edge assemblies out. I think that should be about it. There we go. So we'll set that down. Then we'll come over here to our 1/8 inch balsa and we'll break out one of these trailing edge assemblies. And we'll get a wing tip and a wing root while we're at it. Make sure all the little notches are cleaned out here. And so that's going to fit sort of like so. We'll go ahead and pop things out here. Make sure you don't cut up the rest of it. And then, forgot over here on our 1/4 balsa, I'm going to pop out one of these guys. And there's a little bit of a dog leg to it, kind of right here. So, set it up like so. And that's how this is all going to go together. And what you'll want to do is sand some of the edges. So like there are a few little laser tabs in here that you'll want to remove, and we'll come back and we'll glue it all up. And also make sure that you've got all the rib notches cleaned out, like I said. So we'll come back once all of those are completed. Okay, so I've sanded all of this enough to get things going, and now all I'm going to do is go ahead and just start gluing it up. So just line everything up, edge to edge here, like so. And now you've got a wing assembly once the glue decides to dry. Now before you start sanding the wing to shape, I personally recommend going ahead and popping all the ribs in. And just go in order down your wing, and these should fit in very, very neatly. Like that. And so I'll put a few of these in just so you can see. There's not really anything to them. There is a top and a bottom to the rib. The tops are slightly curved if you look real closely. And the ribs do start tapering a little bit out here in thickness to provide a guide as you're sanding the wing down. So like this tip rib, if I can get it out of here. This one is going to slot way, way down in there, so you can see there's a big gap right here. And so that's going to provide you with a guide as you start sanding the wing down. So, like that. Alright, we'll be back in a bit. Now that we've got both of our wings here done, as you can see, and I have you know, a right wing and a left wing. You need to make sure of that part. Now we can start sanding these down to shape. So the first thing is I recommend a razor plane. This is a Stanley mini plane. They're, you know, depending on your experience level and your personal preferences, or maybe some others you prefer. Actually, before I even start on the leading edges, you kind of want to start tapering down out here. And I'm going to have to increase my depth of cut slightly. We do use a little bit harder wood for these because you don't want the leading edge to fail. And since it is the leading edge is the spar in this particular application, we're using a little bit stouter wood. And so what you want to do is just follow the tops of the ribs on down here. Like I said, this one's slipping on me a little bit. And I'm off camera. Apologies for that. Let me slide you back here. So, like I said, you're following the tops of the ribs down now that, you know, they're on screen. And let's see. There we go. So you're not necessarily going for, you know, super clean cuts, but we've got a smooth taper down there. Now we can come back and we can, and don't do what I just did, gripping here while you're planing here, or you'll just rip your wing apart. So, got a hard spot in that wood right there. So, you just kind of work your way through it. Progress check on that. Excuse me. Drop the other wing on the floor. I've still got some wet CA glue on this, so apologies there. Alright, so we got a ways to go yet. We're really just trying to round this off, not necessarily looking for a fancy airfoil from it. Although you can use, you know, whatever your preference is for a glider airfoil, stand foil, or what have you. It is, after all, what the fuselage is actually sized for is the stand foil, so real thin, almost a razor blade airfoil. And what I'm going to do is keep, since I'm shaking all over the place like that, I'm going to shut the camera off while I'm doing the rest of this, because it's just going to continue to be me planing this down. I'll come back when I'm about to do the tips. Okay, so we've got the leading edge, the top of it pretty much shaped out, and so now I'm just coming in and I'm trying to do a little bit of upsweep on my leading edge here to round it off. Got that all done, because I already did some of it down here. Now we just want to shape in the wingtip a little bit. And we're going to taper it down fairly sharp out here. Oops. And actually I do this by hand here. Got a little thick spot right there. Very good. Okay. And now we'll want to taper this part in. notice I'm dragging this kind of diagonally here instead of straight on. It does make it a little easier. And I'm just trying to get down to the same thickness. There we go. And now at this point you're going to want to taper in your wing trailing edge here. And there's a lot of ways to approach that. You don't want to take this paper thin. You want to leave it about a little less than 1/16 of an inch thick at the wing trailing edge. And going kind of diagonally really helps here because you've got these lightning holes and you don't want to catch them wrong and start tearing out and gouging the wood. And there we go. Now we'll come in angling kind of this way so we can get around there. Almost done with that, and we'll just clean it up with some sanding. And there we go. Got a few gouges here that we'll clean up with sandpaper, and then it'll be good to go. That's real nice and smooth there. Maybe a little thick so it's not touching the ribs quite right. Now we're down on the ribs, and you just want to do that all the way around. So you can see this is level with the ribs, comes down to a sharp point. You just want to do that all the way around. Oh, and I broke a rib. So, there you go. Don't be like me. Alright, I'll go off camera because you're just going to be watching me doing this for forever. Okay, so we've just finished sanding the left wing. You see we've got our airfoil profile here. I have actually beveled this a little bit for the dihedral. Sanded around here, and everything's nice and smooth. The ribs meet the top all along here, all that jazz. Now, at this point, I am right-handed. So this left hand is the side that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my throwing blade on. Well, I'm going to set up to put it on there. And so that these pieces. Let me show you that. They're going to fit in here like so. So you want to leave that gap open. So you apply these after you've sanded the wing down, and then you'll sand it some more to provide a firm fit here. You definitely want these attached very, very firmly, lined up carefully, all that, because you're going to put pretty good amounts of stress on that, and it overlaps this joint here, so you want it to very, very firmly attach in there. And so we'll put the other one on the bottom, of course. And then once these are on, you can come in here and you can sand them real good. I'm just going to give it a basic sanding. And so you just want it, it's okay for it to be a little bit of a bump there. You do want to make it not impact your leading edge too awful much, because it will affect your, particularly your turning performance. But there you go. And then after you've covered the wing, you can put the put your throwing blade in there. And that's all there is to that. Alright, we'll come back after the other wing's done. Alright, so we have finished sanding both wings. So now I've beveled it for them equally for the dihedral. It's 2 inches under each tip, or a total of 4 inches. So all we're doing at this point is we're going to glue these wings together. And there we go. And I've got quite a bit of gap here because I didn't sand it exceptionally well, so I'm just going to fill that in with CA. That's perfectly okay, because we're going to come back later and we're going to put fiberglass down, taping down that, just to harden it up a little bit, and then it'll all be good. I am going to hit it with accelerator, just so that we can move on to the next step. There we go. So, there's your wing. We've got our little pinhole still mostly preserved there. We'll open that up, clean it up a little bit later. In the meantime, you've got a little piece of 1/32 ply, this piece right here. It goes across here. We're going to kind of, we're frankly going to bend it a little bit, almost to its breaking point, maybe to its breaking point. Yeah, there we go. Because our goal is to make that provide support for our screw head that's going to go in there. Like that. So we'll put that in there. And that's just going to keep the screw from hogging out in there when you really throw this airplane hard. If you're flying it as electric or what have you, chances are you'll never really strain it that bad, but your discus throwing is what's going to stress it. We'll hit that with some more accelerator, because what you'll do at this point is you'll just sand it down some so it's a little bit more aerodynamically clean, and so it looks nice and, you know, all that happy stuff. And now we're sanded down. You know, there's a bump there, and that's okay. Now, you've got a leading edge key, but you're going to wait for that until after you fiberglass it, because that's going to get in the way of doing that. And we still have not hinged the flaperons yet. We'll do that later. So, in the meantime, you get to admire that, hey, you've got a wing that's fairly stiff. I'm bending that pretty hard to get it to flex. So, see you in a bit. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and cut the ailerons, or flaperons, whichever you prefer to designate them, because they are technically flaperons, where I go ahead and where I cut those loose. And this will take you a few minutes, but basically all you're doing is you're freeing these. And then what we'll do is we'll just go ahead, we'll drop in like so. And just follow the perforations and cut the wing loose. Or the flaperon, sorry. And now you're going to stop right here at that joint, because what we're going to do is we're actually going to cut this glue joint. Now, that pops your flaperon loose, and what we'll do is we'll want to sand this edge a little bit to just to smooth it out. And the other thing is we're going to want to wax some material off both ends of our flaperon so that it has adequate clearance for full traffic. And so all we're doing is making sure that this has plenty of clearance in here so it doesn't bind as it travels. And then the next thing is we're going to take our razor plane. Remember, watch your up and down on this, of course. And we want this to allow us probably about 20 degrees of up travel. That's generally all you're going to need on this airplane. Does not need a whole lot, as you have these very, very large flaperons. And then sand it nice and smooth. Sand here nice and smooth. And I'm ready to cover that side. We still haven't glassed in here, so we'll I'm going to cut the other aileron loose, and then we'll come back and we'll glass this. Okay, so I've taken my fiberglass cloth and laid it on a piece of paper and sprayed it with some 3M77, and what that does is it helps the fibers of the glass cloth to, sorry, I've got glass cloth sticking to me. It helps it to, the fibers to stay together better, so when you go to cut it, you get a better result. So what we're going to do is we're just going to trim this, and I'm biasing it a little bit. You don't really have to, because all we're really trying to do is make ourselves a strip here. It's going to go on the wing. It does not have to look nice because you're going to sand it to perfection in a little bit. And here we go. So now I can take this. Of course, be careful to set the rest of your cloth aside because you will need it later. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this and lay it down here and give myself a patch over all of this. You don't really have to extend it back here because most of that's not going to be heavily load bearing. This part here you do want some on it because this is going to undergo some torsional loads because the bullet goes through here. So now that we've got this all patted down real nice, what we'll do is we're going to soak it with CA. And yes, this does release some CA fumes, so if you're sensitive to that, do it in a well-ventilated area. There are a variety of ways to do this. I use the I'm going to get glue all over my hands method. You can use a piece of wood to rub it out, or a piece of wax paper or parchment paper or what have you. Main thing is don't get the fumes in your nose too much because they burn. And it doesn't feel too good, and in some cases, some folks do get a little bit of a sinus reaction to it. Now, if you notice, there's some of the fibers that are starting to stick up right here, and we're just going to sand that off after the glue dries. Come around back here. It's okay if you get some up here on your plywood patch, that's perfectly fine. I'm just going to continue this all the way along here, because all we're doing is just trying to provide a solid join between our wing panels. Of course, back here we're also trying to reinforce this area a little bit. And there you go. Let it dry, and you can come back and sand it. Top surface is already dry, hard, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to sand it off. And I just sent the rest of my glass cloth flying. Okay, and we're back. Got everything good to go there. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put our little wing peg here. And then we'll go ahead and we're actually going to cover this wing. So let me get that together. Actually, the first thing you want to do before you even think about that is go ahead and cut into your wing here. Some of that notch should still be there even after all our sanding away of it. And there you you go. So we'll get the notch in here. Okay, so I've broken out one of my little, here we go, locating pins. You see it does have a little bit of a burr on it. So what we're going to do, we're going to sand that off, and then we'll pop the other one out. And we're just going to glue them together to laminate them to 1/16 thickness. And yes, I am not using my index finger for much because I have glue all over it right now. So we've done that. Still need to widen out the slot a little bit here. Needs to be a full 1/16 inch wide. There we go. So we'll stick it in like so. And what you want to do, let me make sure I'm showing you correctly. So this part right here that has the laser tabs on it, that sticks forward. So this is upright. And so what we're going to do is we're going to set it up and mount it in here so you can see it correctly. So that it fits into the wing like that. And there we go. Lather that up with some glue and it'll be good to go. So there you go. Wing is now ready for covering, so are the flaperons. Okay, so take your covering material, leave the backing on it. And what we're going to do is we're going to start getting started with covering. You can cover this piece right here separately, or you can just kind of do that and then use your excess to actually cover the aileron, because the flaperon, because you can, and it makes things go faster. But anyway, go ahead and cut this out. We don't really include a whole lot of excess, we include some, but self-adhesive covering is definitely the most expensive material in this kit. And I'm doing a terrible job at it because reasons. If you like, you can actually use this piece as a pattern to cut out, you know, 4 more of them. Make sure you get the orientation correct, though, because that is kind of important. And there you go. So we'll, I'm going to use this as a pattern, like I said, to cut out some more, and then we'll peel the backing and continue on. Okay, so we've got one of these set up here. Let me show you what I've got underneath. I've got my flaperon spaced back a little bit, so that'll enable me to make sure I get the hinge line covered and whatnot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to remove the backing off of here. Be careful as you do this, because this stuff does do that, and it will tend to stick to itself with shocking effectiveness. So what I'm wanting to do is just make sure that I have all surfaces of this covered, and then I'm going to come in here with my covering iron and I'm going to start tacking it down in a few places. this iron a little bit too hot, but we're kind of getting there, maybe. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time showing you how to cover this, just because I'm hoping that you'll find a video that's a little better about this, because I am more of a stick and tissue guy, and so my covering techniques are probably about the worst that are out there on the internet. I heartily endorse my own covering techniques for ultra-thin plastic films, but this is not really my area of expertise right here. So what I'm going to do is spare you any further grief, those of you who are yelling at your computer screen right now about how awful of a covering job I'm doing, and I'm going to turn the video off and return when I have an airplane that is very nice and covered in wrinkles. Okay, so we have the aileron, or flaperon I should say, and the wing here covered on this side. And so now what you'll want to do is you'll want to flip those over and repeat this procedure for the bottom. And since we've already got covering already pre-cut out, we can attempt to remove the backing. It's going to be ornery for a minute. And that's not working.
Tell you what, I'll come back once I get it off.
Okay, I finally found an edge on it. So the backing cometh off now. And so basically you're just going to repeat exactly what you did for the top surface. And yell at your computer screen some more about my terrible covering techniques. This is probably the least educational part of this entire build series, so I'm going to let you watch some of my incompetence here, but I won't make you enjoy all of it. Or you can hit the fast forward and avoid all of it. And my wife is over here saying that that's what she would do. I would mention to her that she only covers in OS film and tissue, so she has no room to talk. We will drop the flapper on in here so we can make sure that any excess is used in an efficient and judicious fashion. Or some such, right? Now I will mention here in the roots on aileron and everything, you have enough excess that you're going to cut out for scrap and whatnot that you'll want to come back in and seal those, and I've already done that to wrap it around across from the top surface, because this adhesive on the film will start to come loose fairly quickly if you don't have a complete wraparound. And that's particularly important at the speeds that this model will be able to reach, depending on what your usage for it's going to be. But bottom line is you do want to be very, very mindful of that. So I'll come back once I've got this cut loose and a little bit more tacked down, and we can look at that. Okay, so at this point we've got this wing completely covered. You could actually hinge your aileron at this point. I'm going to wait until I have both wings done before I do that. Important things to note: we've made sure that we're completely covered throughout. So I've taken little scraps and made sure to fill in all of those areas. Same thing, there's no bare balsa. The reason for that is that ensures that you're not going to easily delaminate or anything. We've got about that much upward deflection that I can feel with the hinge line. As far as how it's beveled, that is more than you would ever need for a DLG. So, good to go there. Time to cover the next wing, and then we'll be back after that's all done. Okay, so we have this airplane covered completely now. You do want to make sure your ailerons are not warped before you go into this next step. So do check that, make sure everything's laying down correctly, that there's no warps in any of your flying surfaces. I don't see any. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip this guy over. And we're going to take some packing tape, cut it a little bit long, and we're going to lay it down like so. And what you're going to do is get that aileron. We're going to line this up with the edge here. And so we just want it to lay on here, overlap about I don't know, quarter of an inch, maybe a little more. I probably don't have quite enough, but I can go back and replace it at any time, so there is that. Now I'll come in here, and if I can not be clumsy while I'm doing this. And now we will very carefully lay this guy in here, like that. And you want to try to get the bubbles out as best you can. Mine are not coming out real well, but plastic covering and me are not always the best of friends. We've got plenty of down travel, plenty of up travel, everything looks good. So we'll go ahead and do that on the other side, and then we'll be back. Okay, so now we've got both ailerons hinged. Now with your control horns, you want to choose these two. This one is for your horizontal tail. These are set up to penetrate deeper for the thicker wing surface, which you need that because the flaps undergo a fair amount of stress, particularly in the landing flare if you're, landing approach. If you drop your flaps at high speed, that does impose pretty considerable stress. Now, I'm out of frame for a minute because I've got to figure out where my grooves are. So right here, if you were just kind of rubbing in here to locate that groove, because we've got to penetrate in there so that we can insert these little guys. And the control horns fit in there. They slip right on in. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your CA glue, and you're going to squirt this stuff straight into that slot. You want to fill it up. Again, these undergo fairly significant loads if you're doing F3K style flying, because flaps are designed to be dumped to pretty close to 90 degrees at, full speed after while you're still nose down after diving in from 500 feet or so, all that fun stuff. Alright, there you go. You've got your control horns on there. If you do encounter any kind of flutter issues, you can put torsion springs in the ailerons. We may go into that at some point. It depends on what quality of servos you're running, and a whole lot of other things as to whether you'll need those. But the bottom line is that's a complete wing except for our throwing blade that I'll put in a little bit.